Okay, continuing on with question 2 from the Year 13 Applied September test. Okay, this is a box plot question. We have a few simple things to go for, a few easy marks to pick up first. Starting with A, write down the time by which 75% of the children in school A had completed the run. To do this, I'm going to take a dotted line down. Honestly, that's dotted. From the 75%, we know that each section of the box plot represents 25%. So this first set of squares here, that's 25%. This bit is 25%, and this bit is 25. So 75% of the group had finished by this point. It's now a case of reading off the value accurately. And the only acceptable answer here is 37 minutes. I'll use the black pen. 37 minutes. Okay. Now part 2 there, state the name given to this value, and I'm looking for upper quartile there. However, if you'd written Q3, third quartile, or 75th percentile, something like that, you get the answer. However, the answer I'm expecting is the upper quartile. Okay, explain what the two crosses represent in the box plot and interpret them in context. Okay, there's quite a bit to go through here. We are talking about outliers. Outliers, the word gets you 1 mark. The second mark comes from interpreting those values correctly. There are at least 3 possible correct answers. Number 1, they could be errors. Number 2, they are observations that are very different from the others and hence need to be treated with caution. Or thirdly, these 2 children probably took a lot longer because they walked. These are all acceptable answers. Anything that's sensible and explains what an outlier is in the context of the question will be awarded the mark. Good. So we've got so far. I'm just going to shift the page so that we can see a little more. Okay, we're on to part C. It says use the rule given to determine if there are any outliers for school B. And school B has a different set of information. I will go ahead and just take some of these points. We need to use Q3, and Q3 in this context is 50. So we're going to do 50 plus 1.5 times Q3 minus Q1. So that's going to be 50 minus 30, which gives us 20. And altogether, that comes to 80. The other value will be the lower quartile, Q1, minus 1.5 times, again, the interquartile range, Q3 minus Q1, which is still 20. And if we do that calculation, 1.5 times 20 is certainly a value. That would be 0. That'd be 30. So there we go. So in order to be an outlier, the value must be greater than 80 or lower than 0. There are no values which are greater than 80. There are no values which are lower than 0. Therefore, there are no outliers. And we can just write no outliers to finish that answer. Right, next up, on graph paper, draw a horizontal box plot to represent this data from school B so that distribution times can easily be compared to school A. The hidden part there is that you must draw it on the same scale as they did for part A. So we need to copy that scale and then redraw the diagram. Okay, so now I'm going to redraw the box plot, draw the box plot for part D on the same scale that the answer to school A was given on. Now it tells us that in the work that the lowest value was 25 minutes. So I'm going to draw a line at 25 minutes. I would draw it bigger in the exam so that it can be seen more clearly, and you just need to make sure that you use the same scale for if you're doing a comparison. The lower quartile is at 30, which is here. The midpoint, the Q2, is at 37, 32. 34, 36, 37, and the upper quartile is at 50. The highest possible value is 55 minutes, which is here, joining that up to create, with a ruler, obviously, to create our box plot. Okay. There are 3 marks available for this altogether. We're given 1 for getting the scale correct. The second point is for drawing the box and whiskers at 30, 37 and 50, so that you've got the right places. Then you need to, for the box, and then for the the maximum and minimum, having them at the right place gets you the additional point. So altogether 3 marks for drawing a box plot. Okay, part E asks us for 3 comparisons in context. I know it's 3 comparisons because, as we see here, there are 3 marks. We have to compare and contrast the 2 distributions in context. I'm going to talk you through this one. There are basically 4 areas to consider: the average time, the spread of the time, the symmetry of the 2 graphs, and comparing the outliers. So I'll go through each of those. Comparing the averages, I would expect to see you write that school A has a lower median than school B. This one is school B here. Therefore, on average, school A took less time to complete the task. Something like that is acceptable. 1 mark. Second point you could choose. Comment comparing the consistency. That's the range. In this case, the interquartile range is one that you could compare. School B has a greater interquartile range than school A. Therefore, school B was less consistent in the completion of the task. The next option is that we could compare the symmetry, and neither of them are very symmetrical. Both appear to have a positive skew. That means that the lower quartile is closer to the median than the upper quartile. You could compare that and say that both appear to have a positive skew, i.e., in both cases, most children took a short time with a few taking a lot longer. That's what it means when they're spread out that way. Finally, we can compare the outliers. School A has 2 children who are outliers, school B does not. That's all you need to say. Okay, hopefully that is enough explanation to help you on this.